Thanks for asking.
Oh, you're welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the open caucus session of Thursday, May 10th, 2018 of Armstrong School District Board of Directors. Won't you please rise with me for a moment, followed by pledge of allegiance. A moment of silence, followed by pledge of allegiance. And now the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Now,
Here.
Ms. Bowser.
Here.
Mr. Chauncey.
Here.
Mr. Elkin.
Here.
Ms. Lote.
Here.
Dr. Lobby.
Here.
Mr. Mulroy.
Here.
Mr. Skate.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
The Board of School Directors of Armstrong School District convened an executive session on Thursday, May 10th at 6:30 p.m. in the Faculty Lounge of West Hills Intermediate School in Katanning for discussion of personnel, real estate, and contract negotiations.
Thank you. Reports. We'll start with our student board representative report for Armstrong Junior Senior High School.
Good evening. Okay, so I am doing Lenape in West Hills Primary. So for Lenape, on April 26th, they hosted the District Math 24 competition, and in the 5th and 6th grade categories, Lenape swept first, second, and third place. The winner for first place in 5th grade was Rafe Hankey. Second place was Ian Olson. Third place was Hunter Reed. And for 6th grade, the division winners were first place, Landon Johnson. Second place, Mason Anderson. And third place, Cameron McAfee. The students that won had to win like semifinals first, and then they moved on to the finals, along with other schools from Freeport, Leechburg, Blairsville, Homer Center, and United. So it's very good, well doing of the students to be able to sweep all the spots that were available. For West Hills Intermediate, the West Hills Intermediate Band has had 2 recent achievements and recognitions. On April 27th, they went to the Kiski Band Evaluation Competition. They performed 2 prepared songs, and they had to sight read a third one. They ranked superior in all 3, and they were invited to the PEMA competition for next year. They were also recognized by the NAMM Foundation, the Best Community for Music. They were one of 543 schools in the nation, based on a number of criteria on one of which is having an elementary and school jazz band program. They also participated in Math 24 on the 26th. The band concert with the jazz band was on April 25th. The 4th grade students are going on a field trip to the Environmental Learning Center. The choral concert is on May 9th. Gifted fair today, May 10th. On May 14th, it's the career fair for 5th and 6th grade, and there will be 16 presenters. The 6th grade is going on a field trip to PNC Park on May 16th, and the 4th grade is going to Camp Lutherland. The 6th grade recently completed their trout in-classroom project by releasing the trout with the Fish Commission, conducting several environmental tests on the ecosystem, and learning how to fly fish. On May 29th, the H2O Traveling Watershed Lab will be here for them.
Okay, this is for West Hills Primary, and this is April and May. April, so the 3rd grade students participated in the ELA and the Math PSSA testing. The WHP hosted an evening scholastic book fair with BOGO Books, sponsored by PTO. The PTO planned an American Girl celebration for their kindergarten through 4th grade girls to attend. The girls had a book to read and discuss at the celebration, and the girls voted to donate money raised to Orphans of the Storm and Juvenile Diabetes, Brody and Kendall's crew. In May, through Penn State's extension WHP, 3rd grade classrooms have 240 chick eggs to be hatched soon. Students are using their scientific observation skills. Along with ACMH, 2nd grade will participate in a safety fair. ACMH will organize the function with presenters from Katanning Library, PA State Police, Number 6 Ambulance, Ringer's Pet Training, YMCA with Water Safety, and ARC Manor. Second grade field trip was May 9th at PNC Park. Third grade field trip, field trip is a fun day planned at WHP on May 11th. May 24th is the first grade patriotic program for parents. First grade field trip is to Fun Slides on May 25th. June 1st is the kindergarten celebration for parents, and June 5th is WHP Field Day. Okay. And this is for Armstrong Junior Senior High. The senior high band concert was last night, May 9th. It was really good. We played 6 songs, and I think it was probably the best concert we've had there so far. The chorus concert is the 24th of May. We had a very successful prom. The motorcade was very good. There was no accidents, I believe, and I think that it was a very successful motorcade. It was very fast, and I like how they had all the streets blocked, and it was just really nice. The weather forced Grand March inside, and it was our very first time inside for Grand March. However, I think it was really nice inside. I'm sure you can agree. And even Mr. Rummel told us today that it helped us just discover new ways and how to make it faster inside. So that was good. After prom was very successful. I think 91 kids attended, or somewhere around there. It was in the 90s though. Anthony Murray, my colleague, he got principal horn at All-State Festival for band, which means he's the #1 French horn player in our state. So, Isabel Valasek placed 6th in state choir, which she's only a sophomore, right? So that's phenomenal. Liam McElwain was awarded Leo of the Year, and he District 14N is what. So is that I think our entire school district. Haley Woodside and Joey Crispin created a video on drug awareness, and they won #1 in the state. Alexia Jack won first at a congressional art competition. The band was recognized also, kind of like, was it the elementary that did the adjudication thing? The band, we also did that. We went to Hershey Park last weekend, and we played for a group of adjudicators, and they ranked us superior, both of them. We had a 93 out of 100 and a 95 out of 100. Stuco is planning Field Day on May 25th for the high school, and there's a Heritage Day dinner tonight, sponsored by Leo Club, and the senior trip to New York is coming up.
Thank you very much. A lot of great news out of the schools. I've been on the board for a long time, and you'd always hear about the good news within the district and how well everyone is doing. And what I'm hearing more and more when we, for lack of a better word, go up against other students in other districts, we always do very well, and I'm hearing that. And your point about the Armstrong, the band concert, I've heard great things. I heard it was the best. And it's just amazing that it's actually the students that are doing this, because it's very high professional quality. So we're very proud of that. And this is your last meeting with us, so I just want to congratulate you for. I'm sure this wasn't always fun, but hopefully you go away with a little bit of you take some value from that, and you learn from that, and can use it later on in your life, whatever you do. So I want to wish you, on behalf of the board, good luck to you, and congratulations for graduating, and best of luck. Okay, central office reports.
Well, we're going to continue on with the positive things we're going to talk about tonight, so I'm going to move directly into the 18-19 budget. Keep in mind that on Monday we'll ask you to vote for the preliminary budget. Tonight, Mr. Kirk's going to go through the preliminary budget. Little presentation. Feel free to ask any questions. Please know that this is a working document up until the time that you pass the formal budget in June. There's still some things from the state that we need clarity on in terms of allocations and certain line items that we'll certainly update along the way. And there's some other things, revenue sources, that are not as completely clear as they will be a month from now. So what you see there is where we are to date, but there's some things there that could potentially change as well. So without any further ado, Mr. Kirk.
All right, thank you. As Mr. Viva said, this is our first look at the preliminary proposed budget for the 18-19 school year. This will change over the next 30 days. It is required that a board pass a preliminary budget, put it on public display for 30 days, which we send those out to all the schools. We advertise, we put on our website, go through all the requirements. But it will not look exactly the same when we do vote a final budget on June 18th. In front of you tonight, there's a red folder. It has 3 handouts in it. One is the PowerPoint. There's about 20 slides. This is a kind of a very brief overview of the overall budget. Most of the budget information is in the second document, which is the thicker packet. It has all the backup, which you're going to see from the PowerPoint. And the third document is the PDE 2028. This is the state form that school districts must use to submit their budget on an annual basis, and is required that we at least present it to the board and the community prior to submitting it. So again, we're going through this. If you have any questions, please ask them, stop, and let's make this interactive throughout the process. Just always start off with this. The annual budget of the Armstrong School District can be described as the financial footprint for the school year. The annual budget process provides the board of directors with the most direct opportunity to influence the everyday happenings for the stakeholders of the district. This process that we go through started back in October. All the administrators in the district are given their budget requirements. They submit them back to us in December. We start putting those into the budget. We start working on our staffing, which we'll talk a little bit about throughout the process. We pulled it all together and come up with this document we're going to show you tonight. The proposed budget for next year, just shy of $99.3 million. This will probably be the last year we will be under $100 million. But this year, our proposed budget is 99.3. That's an increase of 1.7 million. And our revenue is around 97.8. And again, that's an increase of around 1.7. What I think we've done a good job at, this represents an overall increase of 1.78% from the current year. That's pretty good, considering that most of our salaries are at least 2%, PCER's going up, healthcare going up. Some of the things we've done with our contracts, with reducing starting wages, and evaluating every position when somebody retires or resigns, whether we fill them or not. I think we've been able to minimize our increases over the last couple of years. And our revenue is about the same thing. It is increasing around 1.8%. Some highlights of the expenditures, which I feel have a major driving force on this budget. All contracted salaries and benefits are included. So that means for all our employees, the 600 plus of them, these are all included in there, whether they're on the teaching staff, whether they're paraprofessionals, custodial maintenance, administration. We know what those are because whether through agreements or contracts, we're able to determine what those salaries are. Healthcare rate increase, 5%. Our consortium's had a pretty good year this year. Last year, I think we were around 8 or 9% increase. I just was at a meeting yesterday. Back in January, this was projected to be somewhere around 5.7%. We're down to 5%. Retirement rate, PCER's is increasing from 32.57 to 33.43. What that means, at least it's not increasing as much as it has, but that's 33 cents on every dollar that we pay in payroll has to go towards PCER's. Okay, and that's no fault of the school district, that's no fault of the employees. Years ago, when the baby boomers and everybody started to hit retirement age and started going into the PCER system, the market wasn't doing as well, so there are a couple factors that made this all happen, and I can remember times in my career this was like 1-2%, but now it's up to this. Increase in tuition cost at Lenape Tech, projected around $247,000 for next year. All our building and department discretionary budgets, that's your supplies for each building, your maintenance supplies, those sort of things, those have all been frozen except for athletics. And the only reason athletics is getting a little more this year is because both at West Shamokin and at Armstrong, we're putting new fields in. There is some new track and field equipment and other stuff that is needed, soccer goals and stuff at both high schools. So those line items have increased for those equipment needs, but those would be one-time expenses.
If we're going to freeze those, does that provide the classroom teachers with all the materials they need?
The teachers go through their principals based on their budget.
So the principal said that's enough money. We don't need any more.
They have not asked for it. They have the opportunity to ask for more, and they have not.
You know, because I would question now whether or not the teachers have gotten everything they asked for in this year's budget. You know, that there may be things.
Have you heard something that I haven't?
Well, I know of a couple examples where people have asked for things and they were told there's just absolutely no money. You know, and I think over the past several years, you know, money has been tight, so we haven't increased what they've been getting, I don't think very much, if any. You know, so I'm just concerned that the teachers have just quit asking for things because they're told, oh, there isn't any money, you can't have it. And so we're not providing them with what they need.
The principals are provided with a budget amount based on a dollar allocation per student. It is said in their budget documents that if they need additional funds, they can request those and that'll be evaluated. I did not have any of those requests by not one principal this year. Any other questions on that?
Just one. You give each principal, each building has so much per student.
Correct.
Now, that's just a blanket figure for you, and then they take it and they.
We do not determine what they're going to purchase. That is up to the principal. If the principal recommends that it be purchased in their building, it then goes to the assistant superintendents, whether it's on the elementary side or the secondary side, to evaluate the need also in the classroom. Then it goes to my assistant to evaluate to make sure it's coming out of the proper account number. Then it comes to me for final approval, which I don't say no to, because if it's gone through the folks that say it's needed for the classroom, I say yes. That is the process we go through.
And they can transfer within their, like in every.
If a principal has more money, there's an account that's left
Right.
over, and if there's more money needed for classroom instructional cost, they have the opportunity to do a budget transfer.
Right, and that's on our agenda every month.
That's correct.
Yeah.
The only place we did not budget transfer from is from salary lines or benefit lines.
And last year, same process. Did you get requests for?
Now, we had one major request last year, that was for textbooks, and we had that adoption in this current year budget, which was 600,000. The request we got from both buildings, for the two high schools, was for some athletic equipment based on the needs of the programs, and those requests came in, and we honored those requests. But we did not get any other requests. And when it comes to technology, their budgets also, and they work with Dr. Williams on the request for buildings with technology as well. And that technology budget has gone up. I mean, it's staying the same as it has been, but 5 years ago, it was next to nothing. But we put a lot of money back into technology.
I mean, to address Mr. Scape's concerns, and really all of ours probably, it would be a good idea probably to find out from the principals, are people approaching them, and then they're making, and they may, I mean, they're in control of this, so they may, that's part of the process, I understand that, but, you know, how far are they taking that if the teachers don't have what they need to deliver quality education?
I would ask Dr. Slosky and Dr. Williams, they deal with this. Have you heard any complaints of people not having what they need in the classroom?
I get approached from time to time about tech. You know, we do Chromebooks as we did for last year in conjunction with the math resource purchase, and then of course, you know, the next department wants things also. I think technology-wise, we've taken some very significant strides in the last 2 years to put devices in classrooms, which, you know, to me is one of the best resources that we can provide. But I have not been approached, you know, I need this, or I absolutely need this. There have been different things that I've entertained when teachers have come to me. You know, I'm trying to work with driver's training. Our books are old, that's not up in the cycle, but we may try to do that, you know, before next year. At the rollout of you know, I had written a grant to the foundation for some Chromebooks for science. We had some things, requests come out of that, you know, that I'm trying to work with tech in my budget to facilitate. But not a lot of complaints now.
Does the building principal still do all the budgeting for athletics? It's uniforms,
Yes.
basketball uniforms?
Yeah.
Did you ever give consideration to taking that away and changing the formula you have?
That,
Because
that dollar amount
Well, there's a complaint out there that a lot of money goes into athletics if you got a principal that's into that,
But
and it
just-
doesn't go into other areas.
Just so you know, that dollar figure, that per student, does
Right.
not go towards the athletic budget.
Does that's over and above the
That's over,
athletic?
that's over and above.
Okay.
The athletic budget is separate. The dollar figure that we use is strictly curriculum-based, classroom-based needs. It is not, does not. have to
How do
be
you get the
athletics.
athletic figure? How do you come?
We've
with
used
that?
historical. When we combined the two buildings, obviously, we lowered that down. We've used historical. If it needs to go up a little bit, whether your transportation is going up, the referee cost going up, that goes up appropriately.
I'm more inclined like uniforms and those kinds of things.
They're on a cycle.
Because that was a plan I know years ago. Principal was into athletics and the money went there and it didn't go into instructional.
But yeah, that per student allocation does not go towards athletics.
Okay.
It's separate. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Debt payments, our debt payment increasing by $385,000 for the upcoming year. If you recall, 2 months ago, we did a bond issue, and that is to pay for the improvements at Ellerton and some other district capital needs. And lastly, another item, added security personnel and equipment, going up $325,000. We authorized to use armed security in each of our buildings, as well as looking to implement metal detectors in our elementary schools for the upcoming year. So that has been included in this budget as well.
Sam, do you have a dollar figure on bullet points 2 and 3 approximately, like a 5% increase, what is that?
I can get that for you.
And then on the retirement, was that about $450,000? That's about 1%?
Yeah, if you look at, in our payroll's around 40 million,
Sorry, it will be about 4 million. Or
Well, 400,000.
400,000.
Yeah. In the healthcare, we were paying somewhere around 800 some thousand, so if you take 5% of that,
Like $40,000.
I can get those figures for you.
That security, there's gonna be recurring costs because of the personnel, but then the equipment, it's a one and done sort of deal, I would imagine, right? There's not an
The
annual.
equipment would be one and done, yeah.
No, the metal detectors were roughly $3,600 a piece, and we determined that we'd probably need 11 of them. Because we're gonna need multiples in the bigger buildings to get the kids through there in a timely fashion. One-time cost.
Some additional, we're maintaining the additional money we put in the technology budget, $200,000. Significant reduction in personnel expenditures due to retirements, approximate savings about $500,000. Auto tuition district costs, that's one thing that it's hard to get a grasp on. We could have a student or multiple students move into the district that have some type of different needs that need to be educated somewhere else. We could have somebody that chooses to go to a cyber school. We can have somebody that chooses to, well, they don't choose to get expelled, but they might do something to get expelled, but we still have to educate those students up to a certain period of time. When they leave our district, we can educate students much cheaper in-house than what we can when they decide to leave. They decide to leave, whatever reason it may be, as long as they're still residents of the school district, we got to pay for that tuition and that cost. And that just continues to go through the roof for all districts. And again, we talked about Lenape. Our total cost for Lenape next year is projected just shy of $5.7 million. So those are the main drivers of the expenditures. Again, if there's any detail you want, and, Dr. Lobby, I'll get those figures for you there. Just let me know, and I can, we can break it down even further. And in the hand that we talked about, it does break down things a lot more. Projected staffing. Preliminary staffing figures indicate a reduction of 3 teaching positions, with possibly additional positions, as well as 1 position in the district office. These reduction results of retirements, reassignment, realignment of staff due to decline enrollment figures and other variables. Since the 12-13 year, we hear this a lot. What have we done to try to maintain costs? Our budget's going through the roof, continues to increase. Well, I think we've done a good job, administratively as well as the board. We're down 43 positions, and that's over all classifications since the 2012-2013 school year. If those 43 positions were still here, I would hate to see what this budget would look like. So we are doing what we can anytime a position comes open, through whatever reason why it does come open, to evaluate that and see what the need of it is. This breaks down your salaries by category, and this is typical. Your first two, salaries and wages, employees, and employee benefits. That is the bulk of your budget. Tuition and travel, okay. Transportation, that's your next biggest group. Then lastly on the bottom are debt. Other than those four areas, the rest of it's relatively small. And again, majority of it goes towards instructional cost, and you have your support cost, and your third highest cost center would be your debt, which is your other financing uses. There's just a couple pie charts that show that. Again, almost 61% of it goes towards instruction. And salaries and benefits is another 65% of our budget. Revenue. In this budget, and there's a first mistake I see. We are proposing to generate an additional $500,000 through a real estate tax increase. That should be actually, some things have changed since this went up. It should be 0.82 mils would actually generate that $500,000. So I'll have that corrected for Monday, but it would be 8.82 mils. What we're looking to cover from that is our increase in security cost as well as our additional debt for the improvements and the renovations at Ellerton to help cover some of those costs there. Basic ed subsidy going up $263,000. Special ed subsidy going up $100,000. Interest income. Interest rates are going up, as we know. The Fed has increased interest rates. It costs a little bit more to borrow money, but in return you get a little bit more money or a little bit more interest on your investments. So with us having what I would say a decent fund balance and us managing our cash and our cash flow and knowing when bills are coming due and when things need to be paid, we're investing our dollars a little bit more wisely, and so we're trying to take advantage of the rising interest rates. I think, and I don't even, the current year budget, we're already up to $171,000, so actually I might be even going to tweak because I think I have $150,000 in the proposed budget. But for the current year, we've budgeted $45,000. We're already at $171,000 through the first 10 months. We'll probably end up being somewhere around $200,000, so we'll be about $155,000 for the good just in that line item. And we might be able to, over the next month, I think we might be able to tweak that line up a little bit more when we do the final budget. Increase in revenue in Social Security and retirement. Anytime you pay Social Security, which is 7.65% on every dollar, we get half that reimbursed to us. Same with retirement. Talked about before, it's 33%. We get half that back through reimbursement from the state. And all the other revenue items pretty much remain the same. I know, Dr. Solosky has reported that, federal programs is going to be relatively the same what it has been the last couple of years. And most of other budget lines aren't moving significantly up or down either way. Again, just a breakdown of where our revenue comes from. 55% comes from the state. At one time, they wanted it to be a 50-50. I know we hear a lot about taxes and local, and the local people having to pay a lot of the bill. But right now, only 40% of our revenue comes from local sources. Here's a little history of the mills. If you look back all the way to 0809, which is 10 years, it's only gone up 3.85 mils in Armstrong County. Now, Indiana County, you see it's changed. They had a reassessment 2 years ago. That's why it went from the 151 down to where it is now. So historically, we've not raised taxes, which I consider significantly over the last 10 years. Again, taxpayer relief, the Homestead Farmstead Act. We'll be looking for you to approve that in June. But last year, our taxpayers that qualified for this got about a $300 break on their taxes. We're getting the same amount of money as we did last year for this, which is $3,587,000. There's a formula you use. You plug in the amount of taxpayers that have been approved, which last year was a little over 12,000, and that's what you come up with. So it'll be relatively around $300 again this year. Just a little bit of a budget review of our fund balance. You can see over the last 10 years, again, how it's gone up and down. But it's only gone up 2.8 total over the last 10. So I think we've maintained, we got down to what was low, 5.4. Our high at one time was just shy of 10.6. We ended last year, maybe our second highest that we have been over the last 10 years at 10.2.
That's beginning fund balance.
That was beginning for 17-18. I know big question you guys have asked me over the last couple of years is what we project, where we're going to be at the end. So a little projection right now, and again, as the next 30 days goes by, we'll get a little bit better idea. But we started the year $10,227,000. We're projecting revenue coming in somewhere around 96.4, expenses of 97, and we would end at 9.6. If I look back, when we did the budget last year, that's higher than what we thought it was going to be. Yeah, we're supposed to end the year, if based on our beginning fund balance, if we would spend every dollar and bring in every dollar as per the budget, we would end the year 8.8. All right, I'm projecting now it's going to be around 9.6, so about $800,000 better than what we anticipated. And again, that's a moving target, so over the next 30 days we'll continue to evaluate that and see how close we come to getting a good projection there.
And that ending fund balance still is within the recommended percent of our total budget.
Yeah, to be able to increase taxes. To be able to increase taxes, you can't have more than 8% of unassigned fund balance on the books. We do have monies committed and assigned for approximately $2.5–3 million for future PCER costs and healthcare costs. In case those go out of whack, we would need to dump into the fund balance to do that. So we do have an unassigned fund balance of less than 8%. And then looking at just next year, so if we do finish the year at 9.6, and you take the proposed revenue for next year, the proposed expenses for next year, the ending fund balance would be 8.2.
See, and they generally will come in higher if you look at the last 10 years, other than what was budgeted. The
Yeah.
beginning fund balance versus the actual fund balance.
Typically does, better than what you...
Is there any possibility of using part of that to offset those $800,000, offset that $500,000 increase in taxes?
If you so choose, you could. I
Keep
get
the
to...
millage at the same.
It's a double, there's a point in time where we got to quit dipping in the fund balance.
No, I understand that, but we do have we have specified fund balance is what you called it, 2 million. It may not be used as well.
Correct.
That may just wind
It will
back
not.
in.
That won't be used this year.
Right. So, it might not be used next year, and it would just end up in as additional fund balance. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I would give it some consideration on how the board feels about not bringing up the taxes 0.9%, or 0.9.
0.8 mils.
Yeah, 0.8 mils. And going with a no tax increase. That's just mine. It's up to the board to go along or not.
Timeline, again, we're looking at adopting a preliminary budget on Monday. Okay, then we will advertise over the next 30 days. We'll continue to work on this, tweak it, come back to you, in June to looking for a final adoption. I don't know if there's any other further questions right now, but if this document here, and I'm not going to go through page by page, this document has 42 pages in it, has 3 different types of information. It has some historical data, the first probably like 20 pages or so, what I call budgetary dashboards. It gives you a breakdown of the different cost centers and different items and how they've increased or decreased over the last, how many years did I go? I think I go 5 years, over the last 5 years. Then the next section of data is your proposed revenue and expenses and breaking it down into more detail. And then the last couple sections is future projections on fund balance. Also for future capital expenses, Mr. Henley's put together a capital budget. And also something I added to this is on page 39, is I did a long-term budget projection for the first time. And I took that out 3 years from the proposed, so actually that's 4 years of projected numbers. And again, anytime you use fund balance for recurring cost, you're going to have to use it again if you don't do something to replace that revenue. One-time cost, I'm a proponent for using fund balance. But anytime you use it for recurring costs, you need to somehow make up the revenue the next time around. But by these projections, and again, we're at a point now where 1%, if we get within 1% of our budget, you've saved $1 million. You're $1 million under expenses. I know that sounds like a lot. It is $1 million is a lot, but our budget is almost $100 million. So 1% of that is $1 million. So coming within 1%, people would say, well, that's pretty darn good. It is, but it's still $1 million. So even if we come $1 million under expenses, that's $1 million you finish to the good. So again, just remember that. That's with this budget getting as big as it is, that comes into play. But this projection here does project out, and it had some rough projections. It did not propose a tax increase except for in the current year, and it just went on some historical numbers. But it shows you, where we'd be if we continue to use fund balance, when that might run out. Okay, and that's like 4 or 5 years down the road. And do I think that will happen? Probably not. But just based on some of these hypotheticals, I wanted to throw something together.
I just want to clarify though. You're already planning on using fund balance to offset the expenditures over revenues, right?
Already, we're already looking at 1.4.
Right. So
if we take out the tax increase, then it's 1.9.
I just want to make it clear that we are using some fund balance to balance the budget.
Correct.
Okay.
In this current scenario, it's $1.4 million.
Yeah, my question was just use additional fund balance rather than raising taxes.
Right, the extra
500,000.
I don't know, when do you know of that amount that comes in that's a little bit higher than what you're projecting the ending to be? Like, when do you know, or what?
What do you know the
Mr.
numbers?
Walker, when would you know?
After the audit, probably.
I won't know exactly
Yeah,
till
that's what
June
I was gonna
30th.
say, like, how would you ever catch up to that?
But history has it that it usually comes in higher.
The number's final for the AFR.
Yeah, the history has it we come under expenses.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
We never exhaust the entire budget. All right? The question is, where are you going to come in revenue? And typically, we have been coming in a little bit over revenue as well. But any amount of fund, whether you use $500,000, whether you use $1 million, any amount that you use for recurring costs, it goes away.
Well, and the question I had earlier was just on, it wasn't so much that would allow us to, the percent of our fund balance should, our fund balance should be a certain percent of our total budget for good business practice and for something in case we need it for.
It's a couple things.
What is that range? That's what I'm looking.
It's
5 to 8%.
5 to 8. But they say 5 to 8% for $50 million budget. 5 to 8% for $100 million budget. If we have a boiler go down, there's insurance on it, but we have a lot higher costs than what a $50 million or $20 million budget has as well. Now, and another thing that I like, again, with having a decent amount of fund balance, with the rising interest rates, we're generating additional revenue because we have that additional money also. And again, it generated $150,000 more than what is budgeted this year.
But, right now, our situation as far as facilities, once we have Alderton, is we're going to be in pretty good shape. I mean, we're not looking at 50-year-old buildings with, deteriorating roofs and
We have
boiler systems.
one more building is the primary, has some issues with the units on the roof, yes.
Yeah.
That'll be the next one.
But I mean, for the most part, I think we've gotten our facilities pretty current, and so, we have to look at that in terms of anticipated use of fund balance for.
Our inventory has become younger.
Right, we're going to lose 2 more buildings.
I would agree with those comments as well. I think chances of catastrophic event is too big of a word, but a big event happening, it's going to cost us several $1 million is, you know, highly unlikely, put it that way. But considering all those factors, I tend to agree with Rick a little bit. So.
And again, what you're voting, you're not voting, you don't vote for millage until the final budget. You set the millage rate then. This preliminary budget you're approving on Monday is just approving a spending plan of the $99.3 million. Has nothing to do with setting the millage.
Do we know anything about, so with these buildings being gone, what was the maintenance we were paying on these buildings that are now going to be off the books? Like, what do we have this in there? Like, how much we're going to save on not having Ford City High School?
There wasn't a ton of money that we're still spending. There were some utilities. The one main that had the utilities, it was still Kittanning High School. The utilities in the other two buildings were shut down. We did have to go down and cut grass, but until those properties are sold, once it becomes a padded, pad ready with grass, until they're off our hands, we're still going to go down and cut those and shovel snow, as long as we still own them. Now, we will reduce insurance. We were insuring them as vacant buildings, and I think for the 3 buildings, it was only $7,000 a year. So we'll go down to 1 vacant building until Kittanning High School is off our hands. So that's not a significant savings there. But we did move the insurance to be vacant instead of an occupied building, which saved us some considerable amount of money. And we did that last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's still an expenditure in terms of a $99 million budget. It's not significant, but it's still an expenditure.
And then can we get on how much it cost us to transport the kids for practices for football and how much all of that costs? Yeah. So we can kind of get an idea with what we were, with having it on campus and whenever we were transporting football players off and things, like how much that costs so we can get an idea. But we need to look at that also, make decisions.
Like Mr. Kirk said, this is the approval of a spending plan.
Right.
I look at it as doing one of 2 things. Continue to look at how we can cut the spending before we adopt the final budget in June.
Right.
Or think of ways that we're going to fund those expenditures. And that's either with the millage increase or using overlap fund balance, whatever that is. So
I can tell you there's a couple things since this document has been put together that has come up that will positively impact the budget. Healthcare rates down a little bit, again, as I mentioned, and it's only going to be maybe $50,000. There's some things we're working with, some transportation costs at the IU that if it goes our way, it might be around another $200,000 savings next year. Our access funding, which took a hit a couple years, we used to be up around $800,000. Last couple of years, we've only generated $300,000. I already know that our cost settlement for next year is around $500,000 or $600,000. I mean, it's actually coming in for this year, but it's going to be next year's budget. So right now, I have $300,000 in the budget for access funding. It's probably going to move to somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000. So that's another $200,000 or $300,000 positive spend for us. So again, interest, I think I can also do a little bit more with that. So it's going to look better than what it currently is. Whether or not, and I can take out, if it's the consensus of the board to take that millage out, we will. Then I'll show you what the difference will be between expenses and revenue. And again, maybe by we vote final in June, we'll have a closer look, feeling where we're going to project in. But we came pretty close last year to projection. I think we were within a couple $100,000, ending up where I think I proposed, or at least I told you last year where we're going to be. So I'm kind of comfortable where it's ending this year, too.
Yeah, there's also a feeling across the state that there may be some additional monies put into a line item for school safety and security as well. To the degree that happens, or the dollar amount, they haven't been specific on that yet, but the likelihood of that coming through is pretty good.
One more question. If I'm going by memory, the Peasers, it was up to, how high does it go? It was up to, if I remember, whenever it first came out and we had to look at it, it was like 33% was about.
It's 33.43, I think, for next year, but it's projected to go a little higher.
It
It
wasn't
was like,
much higher
I
though,
want
because
to say
this is about
35,
where.
36, somewhere in that range,
And
maybe.
plateau.
It
Yeah, because
plateaus.
it was, the 33 was, I mean, that we were getting
There's
close to
a,
the plateau, and if I remember the.
You know, I could provide you guys with there's a teacher's projection out there. I could provide you with that also, just so we know.
I remember looking at that and watching it, and I remember the 33, and that's where it was pretty, you know, we were thinking, oh my God.
First, it did not go as high this year as they originally
Thought it was
thought it was going to.
Okay.
They certify that rate in December of every year.
Okay.
Yeah, the overall cost will be similar, but you're not gonna see those huge jumps anymore,
Okay.
unless we have a need to hire additional employees.
Any other additional questions at this time?
I have a comment. I'd like to not have this conversation next year or the next year. I think we ought to look at our revenue sources other than the standard subsidies and taxes and everything. I'd like to see us look at our cyber school. We're spending money sending kids out. Let's see what we can do with our cyber school. Let's look at grants. Fort City and Catania rebuilt themselves with grants. There's education, Department of Education. I've looked some of this stuff up. Department of Education has grants. They are available. Department of, excuse me, Homeland Security, Department of Justice. There's all grants out there. So I think we should take advantage of that. We just have to have the mechanism to get to our grants. So if someone knows anything about writing grants, we can look into that, and I think that'll solve some of these problems. And one more, we have property. We could do a little lumbering, right? Let's cut a little select.
We did. We did at Shannock.
Right.
Generated
We've
67,000.
got acreage at West Hills, we have acreage out at West Shamokin. I think there's 40, 50 at Lenape Elementary. Just an income source.
And I agree. Schools are challenged with coming up with additional revenue sources. And I think it does take a little thinking out of the box to do that. I know one thing that we're going to do here in the near future, we talked about it before, but we are going to do it. We have 2 commitments right now. They're small commitments of $25,000 each. And I'm not going to give the name yet. They're for scoreboard advertising. But we did talk about naming rights. And now that we know what this is going to look like, what it's going to be done, and Mr. DeViva and I are going to reach out to those individuals. And hopefully our goal is to generate $1 million over the next 10 years from these folks for naming rights. And those properties are already paid for. Those things are paid for. We don't need the money to do that. So, but it would be another additional revenue source that if it's $100,000 a year we get, it's $100,000 we didn't have.
And Mr. Smith, I mean, with regards to the cyber school, when I first came on the board, that was one thing that I pushed really hard to revamp. I just thought it was ridiculous that we're letting people leave the district when we could offer a lot of the same services and education in-house. And they, at that time, that was the last, I don't know if Chris, you were still here, they really revamped it, tried to boost the marketing of it, and I mean, it wasn't as successful as that I'd hoped to be, but then it was still it was somewhat new, the whole online environment, and now it might be another time to really ramp that up again and to look at the feasibility of keeping more students in the district instead of letting them go out.
It's something that's it's a big battle right now. When that cyber or charter school tuition is, I guess it's generated, or when it's come up with, each school pays a different amount, okay? You might, Highlands might have a student go to ABC Cyber, we might also, but we pay different rates, because it's based on the budgeted expenses for the school district sending. The budgeted, not the actual. So you could budget what we budget, but if you come $2 million under budget, you're still paying based on the budget amount. So there's a fight right now to make it actual. The formula that's out there, depending on where you put your expenses, you can hide them. And what some business managers are doing now is they're taking it out of some of the line items and are actually putting it in the budgetary reserve. Because budgetary reserve is a figure that does not go into that calculation. So I thought about taking $1 million out of maybe, let's say, special education cost, which then generates your special education tuition, and putting it somewhere else. It's a battle right now. I think eventually what will happen, they'll switch it to actual, because that makes more sense. Do it based on what your actual expenses are than budgeted. But there's 500 different school districts out there. Everybody pays a different rate. And the rate between a regular ed student and a special ed student is almost double for a special ed student, at least. We're paying upwards of $25,000.
What is our, I mean, it's in here, but I can't remember. What is our cost of cyber school to the district, of students who are doing it outside of our district?
It's broken down in different items.
It's about 1.2 million.
That's just cyber.
Okay.
Are we able to draw from other schools to take our cyber school?
We
have the
can,
capability to
we
do that?
could.
I mean, that would-
Most people did what we did. I mean, they went out and created their own. Now, there's a lot of different iterations of it. I mean, we do it pretty cheap when it's done in-house, all right? Right now, I think we have about 50-ish, 51 kids, grade 7 to 12 outside. I think we have another 18 to 20 K to 6 outside. So all told, it's in the numbers around 70. When we do it in-house, I have this year's cost projected is going to be right around $3,100, I believe, $3,200. Now, when we're talking about what Sam has to pay, what we have to pay that comes out of our subsidy to pay some of these other outfits, those costs range between $12,000 and $18,000.
How much of that goes to those outfits? Does it all go to them?
All of it.
So can't we draw other people?
But
here?
it's their choice.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we
You know,
can.
somebody
I mean, and
wants to go to PA cyber
we-
school because
we-
they hear about it.
To the effort of, kind of marketing commitment, we didn't have an elementary program before this year, all right? Now, it's hard to tell, how much we saved or didn't save, but we've had, right now, we have 5 full-time kids in that program that potentially we would have lost to other places. We've had 5 other kids who, stuck their toe in the water and came back to regular ed. So that savings could range, anywhere exponentially, over their time in school from hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Now, did it end up being an added cost for us? Yeah, but not if they left and went, somewhere where we had to pay $12,000 to $18,000 a kid. Now, I did reach out before we started school this year to the rest of the students that we have in grades 7 to 12. We did some enticement things of, hey, we have new laptops. We'll come out and set them up. We and this was prior to me coming here, we pay a part of their household internet. Okay, if they have to, they bring us a bill from Windstream and we reimburse, if they're in our program. So some of those things have been done. Some, if the kid's been in there more than a year, it's tough. The elementary kids that we had that were already in, last summer went to most of, I'd say 98% of their homes. Knocked on the door, we had a, kind of a brochure type deal and said, hey, we have that here now. Our selling point for the elementary here is we'll let you come and do activities. If your child wants to learn how to play the trumpet, you can come here and learn to play the trumpet. You can do your schoolwork at home. We just didn't have, I didn't have any switch. But like I said, we had some that we may have lost this year. And, to Mr. Smith's point, he's right. We have to try to stem any that we're losing and get back as many as we can. I mean, that's revenue building in and of itself versus, even if we have outside kids. If we get our own kids back, we could save a ton of money.
Yeah. I was saying if we could draw outside kids in.
It's tough because most districts did what we did. They went down the road of saying, all right, if we use our people, our control, we're going to figure out how to do this cheapest. And that was in part here, and there's still people that are doing it that can do it cheaper than we can.
In order to get students outside the district, we would have to have something distinctive about our district that would.
I think the electives that we offer through cyber, because they try to mirror what we're doing in regular school, make us a bit unique. Now, and just as you know, there's pluses and negatives. One of the things that detracts for us, if we're pursuing outside, clientele, the people we employ to run it have to teach from 7 to 2, 7 to 2:30 every day. So they're not necessarily, we're not a 24/7 kind of running outfit. Now, are they responsive to the kids? Yeah, but generally that's off of their, that's off their daily routine. There's other people that's their full-time, it's a business. That's what they solely focus on. We have, this whole myriad of other things that we have to kind of deal with.
Well, this is a good discussion. I think we should continue this, so we could actually, make it a focus of 1 or 2 meetings, talk about this, get the board's thoughts and ideas, and then, of course, you guys got some experts in-house to try to design or redesign to try to address this, try to stir it up a little bit. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Good stuff. Anything else, board members? Okay. Now we're going to turn our attention over to the presentation of the regular monthly agenda. Actually, before that, I would ask if there's any public comments on agenda items. Good, let's move on. All right, now the presentation of the regular monthly agenda. So I would ask to have the minutes added to the agenda on Monday. I need consensus to add the open caucus of April 5th and the regular meeting of April 9th to the agenda on Monday. Do I have consensus?
Yes.
Okay. Bills, we have 4. I would look for consensus to add all 4 to the agenda on Monday. The food service fund for April, capital projects for April, athletic fund for March, and the presentation of bills for payment for April. Do I have consensus to add those items to the agenda?
Yes.
Education, there are education 1 through 9. Does the administration want to go through and you can highlight any that deserve explanation? Typical student transfer requests.
First 3 are typical month-to-month items. The overnight trips, senior trip, marching band, SAD, I think we discussed those previous. Summer remedial school program, I didn't make comment on that. Dr. Williams, what we do there. It's Ed 7.
That's a summer school that's our regular summer school program that we have. We don't have numbers yet. I mean, we'll see as the year closes out.
And then the annual agreement with the Delphi that the contracted service that we get from them, that we pay for seats that we use on an annual basis. Typically it's around 10. Anything after, if we exceed that number, then the cost goes up a little bit.
Okay, so do I have consensus to add Ed 1 through Ed 9 to the agenda on Monday?
Yes.
Business, 7 items under business, including what we just discussed, the preliminary budget. Again, administration want to highlight any of those?
The first 3 are things that are annual. The interscholastic sports accident policy, which we have each year, total 13.5. That covers all our student athletes in case something would happen. Voluntary student accident insurance, it's offered each student. If their family chooses to participate in that, it's at their cost. Election of treasurer for the upcoming year, that is myself. I learned a resolution for Manorville Borough. We're looking to use Source for Teachers next year for our paraprofessional substitutes. Currently, we use them for our secretaries as well as our teachers. The next one, Mr. DeVivo, that is for us to be able to participate in.
Yeah, the Tri-County WIB workforce development grant for teacher or educator in the workplace for participating in that group to allow some of our teachers that experience if they so choose. It's through an IU consortium.
Business 8, summer food service program out in the Rural Valley area. Will take place at the New Hope Church, months of June through August. And then lastly, the preliminary budget.
Any questions about any of those items?
Should we be told anything about the LERTA resolution for Manorville?
Manorville approved it. It's heading to the county, I believe, next Wednesday, and
Okay.
back to us again. Those are typically, they've been approved.
It's the,
without-
excuse me,
Good,
it's the entire borough
yes.
is, and there's a, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've passed, most of the boroughs now and townships have had these, improved these.
Yeah, 'cause
And we followed suit.
Right, but like 90% of the
Taxing bodies have done it.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's, we studied that a couple years ago to determine whether or not it was benefiting any of the communities. I can share that with you at some point.
Okay.
Any other questions on business 1 through 8? Consensus to add those on Monday?
Yes.
Yes.
Maintenance, 3 items. Awarding bid for tar and chip of West Shamokin, new storage shed for West Shamokin, funded by the Drama Club, and proposal for furniture for Elberton Elementary School.
Yeah, tar and chip was discussed, I believe, last month. $30-some thousand tar and chip. They will fix the parts of the roadway and parking lot that need fixed prior to tar and chipping. M2 is self-explanatory. M3 is the furniture associated with the renovation of Elberton Elementary, the office area and nurse's suite.
Any questions?
The funding for the Elberton Elementary
Come from the construction funds.
construction fund. Did anybody look at those yet? We just got them this afternoon, I think. That's
Got what?
the backup for the furniture. No, that's all.
It's $60,000. It's similar to what we did out at Shannock Valley.
Okay, we bought for Shannock too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
We did for the office area as well as the nursing suite.
yeah, it was similar layout there.
Any other questions? Consensus to add M1 through 3 on Monday.
Yes.
We still have C, right?
Yes, this is different than what we took.
Okay, we have one item under construction, a change order for AHS Stadium project.
Yeah, this change order is a result of work that was previously done. However, how that took place, I'll let Sam expound on that, but it's for, I think, concrete work under the existing bleachers at Armstrong.
Yeah, there were 3 things that made up this change order. One was the concrete work, a sidewalk underneath the bleachers, stone cover underneath the bleachers, and a French drain. This work, as Mr. Viva said, has already been completed. For some reason, it slipped through the cracks. It did not get approved prior to completion. It wound up on the last invoice when I saw it, and I questioned, why they didn't get to us in the past. So right now, I mean, it is work that needed done. I knew the pricing, I knew the work that needed it. We did need a sidewalk underneath it. We needed it just for some reason it did not show up in a pay app. We never got it until just now. They requested their final pay, and it was on there. So now I'm just asking for approval after the fact.
And it's just been brought to my
Put it on
attention
your
that any questions regarding that? I mean, if there are questions, I'll let Sam address it before Any questions regarding that one? The C2 is apparently showing up on the devices, board docs. I'm going to ask the board to pull that item. It's the item relative towards work to be done on a practice field at Armstrong High School until further research needs done on that topic and how we go about getting it done.
So I'm asking for consensus, just C1 alone. Do I have consensus?
Yes.
Student transportation services, 1 run-of-the-mill, approval of bus drivers. Do I have consensus to add that to the agenda?
Yes.
Policy, 2 items under policy. There's our solicitor to explain the changes.
Policy 1 and 2.
Yeah, one's for policy number 105. Sorry to catch you off guard here.
Yeah, I did not,
That's okay. Do you recall, Mr. Didier?
Nothing's.
Yeah, they're usually very just slight wording issues.
May I? Amend 105 is a curriculum, a small change in the curriculum, and policy 2 was rescinding something about English instruction education.
Yeah. Policy 138 refers to English learners in the district, and there's a lot of semantic changes with regards to exit criteria and how we reclassify students who have exited ESL services and then need to be re-entered into the program. So a lot of it is just really with classification of English learners. That's 138.
You get a bill.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
That's it.
Do I have consensus to add policy 1 and 2 to the agenda?
yes.
General, 3 items under general.
The first one is the cooperative sponsorship we have with junior high wrestling with Washimoto and Armstrong. They're asking to discontinue that in an effort to try to revive their program. We brought that to the board. This is the formal approval to allow them to do that. Gen 2, the real estate items that we discussed, potential allowing the district to send out bids regarding the sale of Catania High School. And Gen 3, I'll ask our solicitor to give some specifics regarding the Ford City Union School Authority.
It has been determined through looking through past real estate documents that the deed for the Ford City High School property, which the building has since been torn down, is still held in the name of the Ford City Union School Authority. So in order for the district to be able to do something in the future with that property, the authority would need to convey the property back to the district. We have done our research with the Corporations Bureau in Pennsylvania and determined that the authority is still active and in existence, although has not done anything for some time. But the way that the process will work to have the property passed back to the district or transferred back to the district will be for the school board to actually appoint 5 residents or taxpayers of the district to serve as members of the authority. Those members will then convene a meeting for the purpose of adopting a resolution which will allow for the transfer of the deed back to the school district, and then subsequent thereto, the authority will then vote to, this will all occur at the same meeting, will essentially vote to dissolve themselves because there will be no further purpose for the authority. We reviewed the requirements with the administration and are recommending that the appointment be made at Monday's meeting with a meeting of the authority to follow.
Any questions about general 1, 2, or 3? Consensus to add those items on Monday?
Yes.
Okay. Other, anything?
In the information folder, there's a lot of positive articles in there from the local newspaper regarding all the good things that are happening in our buildings this time of year, and a lot of good things that the students have done. I think, matter of fact, we have 2 of them coming next week. The all-state music performers who placed in the state speaker next week to receive awards. There's a letter in there as a result of us opposing Senate Bill 2 last month. We sent out letters to our local politicians and actually got a return response from one of them. So that's in your packet. I think that's it.
Anything from board members? I mentioned to Mr. DeVivo that maybe to possibly look into a platform for graduation at the Armstrong Senior High School. Last few years I've been receiving some complaints by parents. It's all flat, and students get their diplomas, it's flat level, so they're not kind of going up on a podium, and it's just kind of hard for everyone to see out there. So you're going to look into maybe having some kind of a platform available so that people can have a better view. I would guess that in future, probably being held on the football field?
That's the plan.
That's the plan.
We were hoping that they'd be further along and maybe able to swing it at the field this year. But it's going to be an ongoing work site, and there's some liability concerns.
Sure.
We put 1,000 people
Yeah,
in that facility as an active work site. So probably have one more year of doing it the way we've been doing it. We're looking into risers. I should have an answer for you on that regarding where we are with that.
Graduation is 7th,
Yeah, I believe, it hasn't changed.
Thursday the 7th.
Anything else, board members?
If this is gonna be the last year, do we need to look into risers? Or just let them complain again?
Well, right now, we have risers that you can stand. We don't have the risers you put a chair on and sit. So,
All right.
if we can rent them at a
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking for something real low
I'll
cost.
say, I don't think we need to spend money
No,
on
no.
buying it, purchasing it
I mean, all,
for a
yeah,
year.
the people who have students graduating this year don't care about next year, you know? So, you know, I'm just trying to address some of those concerns too. But yeah, I'm looking for something
Yeah, even if we have
just
to.
a step, just as they can receive their
Yeah.
diploma.
Yeah.
Because if you've ever been part of that graduation there,
When you're done.
they're scattered out in the parking lot. And it's, I mean, you
That's what he
cannot
does,
see. I mean, you just
Yes,
cannot
Stuart.
see up there. It's
Yeah, especially at the front, because it's flat, but as it goes up, the people stand back
Way
there
back.
better view, but they're
Yeah.
further away, so
Yeah.
we'll figure
Yeah,
something
if you
out.
could look into it, appreciate it. All right, a motion and a second to adjourn. Motion? Mr. Lobby, second. Mr. Elton, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned, thank you.